So I'm sure a lot of you have heard the news. Nintendo just announced Mario Kart World as one of the launch titles for the Switch 2. And honestly, that got me thinking. There's this huge empty space in the VR scene for a game like that. Now I'm not going to get into all the price gouging stuff, there's already like a billion videos already covering it. Instead, I want to show you why this kind of game could be an awesome fit for VR. Part of the reason I feel like this is because, well, we've already got a bunch of Mario Kart style VR games. I'll get into those in a bit. But first, did you know that modders have already made a ton of Mario Kart games work in VR? Yeah, they're doing what Nintendo don't. Like, take the Citra 3DS VR emulator I covered a while back. It uses the 3DS's stereoscopic 3D effect and lets you play Mario Kart 7 with pass-through. Now, is it true VR? Not really. But honestly, it definitely looks a lot better than the original 3DS screen ever did. It does get a little laggy on the Quest, mostly because it has to load the shaders during your first lap. But once that's done, it actually becomes pretty playable. But it gets even better thanks to this feature implemented by Dr. Beef, of the Beef Team fame. You can crank up the immersion even more by enabling something called Super Immersive Mode. This lets you hit up on the D-pad after the race starts to switch into first-person mode. It's not quite the same as a game built for ground up from VR, but it honestly tricks your brain enough to feel like you're actually driving in the driver's seat. Now over on the PC VR side of things get a little bit more wild with it. With a little bit of setup in the Dolphin emulator, you can actually play Mario Kart Wii in VR, with a real steering wheel if you got one. And let me tell you, it's totally worth the pain in the ass it is to set up. Unfortunately, since Dolphin VR is based on an older stable release of Dolphin, playing on modded maps is kind of a bit of a pain, since you have to manually package them versus loading them in via a patch. As far as I'm able to find out, there's no way to play online, so you won't be able to spam your friends that you're playing with tilt controls. And while we're still on the Dolphin emulator, I found this cool video by Stony VR where he managed to get Mario Kart 64 running in mixed reality. He used virtual desktop and called the Skybox to kind of give it this unique tabletop style feel, kind of like the pass-through with Mario Kart 7 setup I showed you earlier. I wouldn't say it's as immersive as like first-person karting, but it's creative as hell and definitely worth a quick shout-out. And speaking of creative setups, I also wanted to mention this video by Virtual Reality Oasis, where he streamed Mario Kart Live to his Quest 2. Now, as you can probably see, it's kinda too laggy to be fun in my opinion. But still, it shows the potential of mixed reality Mario Kart experience that Nintendo could totally lean into someday. Before we jump into non-Mario Kart VR titles, there's one last game I have to bring up. And that's the actual Mario Kart VR game made by Bandai Namco. Sadly, it only exists as an arcade exclusive in a few major cities, but it used the HTC Vive and two Vive trackers to put you in a full kart setup. And unlike the Dolphin setup, this version actually let you throw items at other racers, which is obviously way cooler than just pressing a button. I really wish it wasn't locked to arcades, but I get the feeling that Nintendo's not going to dip into VR seriously until they fully committed. Outside of the Virtual Boy and Nintendo Labo, they've been pretty hesitant to go all in the platform. Which is a shame because, like I said earlier, there's a massive void in VR for such a polished kart racer like this. The closest thing I've seen is Galaxy Kart, which you can find on Steam, Quest, and PSVR. And while I had fun with it, I couldn't help but compare it to the polish of a first-party Nintendo title. If you're gonna take direct inspiration from a giant like Nintendo, you really have to put a lot of polish into it. I mean, it did have the quirky characters and cool tracks, and it even had items based around VR like throwing or shooting, but the UI felt very cumbersome to work around, especially when trying to join a lobby with Dos Pasitos here and get a race going.
What the hell?
Honestly, it's almost easier to jump into one of the many Mario Kart World rips in VRChat. Sure, some of the ports are janky as hell, but others are surprisingly good. Plus it's free and works with your non-VR flat friends, and you can literally race as any character you want. It's definitely worth checking out, even for the memes and the nostalgia trip. And you got a bunch of non-Mario Kart VR racers that still kinda scratch the same itch. Like VR Racing Hoverbike gives off that arcade motorcycle racing vibe with the power-ups and the items. And Rec Room also had a Mario Kart-style buggy race called Rec Rally. But like a lot of the Rec Room originals, it's been pretty much abandoned since they pivoted to more of a Roblox-style user content. One of my low-key favorite VR games is Sprint Vector. It's like if you took Mario Kart and mixed it with Mirror's Edge. It's got the awesome parkour movements, the power-ups, a bunch of lore with unique characters. It has so much charm. Sadly, Survios, the devs behind the Alien VR game, kinda goes to the game like they did a bunch of their other VR projects. But if you're interested in this, the Steam group Join Us in VR still plays every Wednesday around 2 PM Eastern. So yeah, join us in VR. Then of course, you got the more realistic VR racing sims like Kayak VR Mirage, which actually uses the ghost data system like Mario Kart. You also have the super hyper-realistic Assetto Corsa. They're great and all, but they lean more toward realism than the wacky item-fueled chaos that makes a Mario Kart game what it is. Oh, and I actually forgot, you can actually load some mods into Assetto Corsa and drive around in Mario Kart maps. So that's kind of worth checking out, I guess. There's probably a few other games that I didn't mention, and feel free to drop them in the comments. But suffice to say, I think everything I just covered goes to show how much people want Mario Kart in VR. Or at least some kind of Mario Kart-esque game with the same amount of polish as Nintendo puts into theirs. So what do you think? Should Nintendo finally take VR seriously? Or has the price and model got you leaning towards a boycott? Personally, well, I'd love to see a first-party Mario Kart VR. I think any dev that really puts the time and effort into a polished karting experience could do really well in the VR ecosystem. Anyway, that's it for this one. Space Squid out. Peace.